Welcome to Job Sharing and Beyond, the Future of Work podcast that goes beyond the traditional 9 to 5. I am Karen Tischler, speaker, consultant, and host of the show, where we hear from global experts every other week to discover innovative solutions and tips on how to remain a relevant employer in the future. Before we get started with our episode today, I wanted to tell you that today, September 30th, is International Podcast Day. It is celebrated via pre-recorded and live broadcasts from all around the world. I have the honor of being a speaker via my pre-recorded broadcast. In it, I share the reasons why I feel so connected to the day, give more information about my mission for this podcast, and I explain the 4 main areas that my guests are focused at. And I also give a short summary on previous guests. A link to the website will be in the show notes. But now let's get to the main part of the episode. I am very happy to welcome Professor Dr. Eleonore Soei-Winkels to the Job Sharing and Beyond show today. Elli teaches industrial and occupational psychology at FOM in Germany. She has won lecturing awards in 2017 and 2020 and was nominated as Professor of the Year in the unicum competition 3 times starting in 2016. Elli has a diploma in psychology and a PhD in neuroscience. She is also a certified systemic management coach and has worked in IT consulting and strategy with Accenture. Her passion is to develop people and to make them realize what they are able to accomplish. She uses her diverse background to teach students, leaders, and professors through multi-didactic methods. In our conversation today, we touch on many of the 4 main aspects of my podcast conversations to create a more diverse workforce and thus lead to gender equality faster. Flexible working, fathers in care, returning professionals, and transferable business skills from unpaid care work. For example, Elli talks about how job sharing can happen in unusual ways. She also shares using another flexible working method, asynchronous working. More and more business leaders are interested in reducing secret parenting. Equally, sharing unpaid care work will help create more role models for their employees. Elli's method of sharing and talking about her life-work balance with her students follows the same line, and it also teaches them great life skills. Additionally, Elli's diverse academic and professional background enables her to provide the students with scientific and psychological information about being a parent. Through her own experience, Elli also spoke about the benefits for organizations about hiring a Quereinsteiger, someone with a non-linear background. Many returners often fall into this general category, so that was very insightful to hear. Please enjoy the wonderful conversation I had with Professor Elli. Welcome to the show, Elli.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Well, it is really nice to have you here today. Now, because we have a lot of listeners from all over the world, could you tell people where you're calling in from and if there's any type of food or site in your area that you could tell our listeners about?
Oh, yeah, that's my pleasure. Actually, I don't think that the site is so much touristy, but I love going back from anywhere to Düsseldorf. So flying back and watching from the airplane the River Rhine is something that is really associated for me with a feeling of coming home. And the food that I love is actually currywurst. So I love currywurst and pommes. You can't live without it. always ate it. And there's great currywurst in Berlin, and in Bochum, in Düsseldorf, everywhere, in Oberhausen. So it's great.
Thank you so much. Now, Elli, you're a professor of industrial and occupational psychology at FOM, University of Applied Sciences for Economics and Management. But your path to your current position was rather unusual. Could you tell our listeners about that, please?
Yes, yeah, I can share my story. Actually, I always wanted to become a professor. So I always was interested in understanding the brain, the human brain as a black box. And I studied psychology because I thought that that was the best means to understand the brain. But still, I felt that it wasn't enough to understand the brain as such, just from the psychological perspective. So I then decided to pursue a PhD, and I did a PhD in neuroscience, also nearby, so in Bochum, International Graduate School of Neuroscience, which was really like mind blowing because it was an interdisciplinary approach. We had to, over the course of a year, we had to take multiple exams on the level of other masters in chemistry, in physics, in IT, or informatics, and everything. And it was like totally overwhelming because I didn't study all these others, but I had to listen to learn on the level like them. And we the whole class was mixed up from all over the world, people from all over the world, but also mixed up from all other disciplines. And learning from them and understanding where they're coming from culturally, but also from their way of thinking, helped me to understand that the brain is such a multifaceted thing, which is continuously fed by so many experiences that make it hard to understand because the brain is ever changing. And while I was loving research and I was loving also lecturing, I then decided to leave that path because I was finishing, like many of my students now, just way into the crisis. So the financial crisis 2008 was hitting the market, and there were many obstacles that my then boyfriend, now husband, had to tackle. So I felt that with the path that I was pursuing, it wouldn't have been easy to financially be on independent, to be there for my partner. So what we did then was to say, okay, maybe I can leave academia, and the plan was always maybe I can come back in someday. That day came later, like 10 years later. So because I had so much fun in the industry, I was so happy to enter a job market in IT, which was also then much better than the other markets like now. So IT was then already a growing market, and I was able to transfer the skills that I had, which was I was a little bit accomplished in programming, my own experience. So for a psychologist, that was an accomplishment. From an IT people's perspective, it wasn't, but it was enough to it was enough to convince the hiring manager to say that I can work something like in IT, and maybe I wouldn't be a developer, but I could be the translator. I could be translating the things that a developer would be doing to make people in sales or whatever in marketing understand why the program is needed and what they should be doing with the new features of the program. So I was applying for a job of a technical translator, and I then got a job as an IT analyst. IT analyst was going a bit further into the code. So I had to reskill or upskill, say, upskill learning SQL and stuff like that. And I did because I was a logically thinking person at that time already,
Mm-hmm.
I actually did like it in relational databases to look things up, to change anything. So it was a nice job. And from there, I started to see some other possibilities for me, because that was obviously not the highest job that I was working at, or the highest level, but I could do so many other things as well. So I tried to pursue then project management, or also working across the whole product lifecycle, software lifecycle. So it became a release manager, program manager, and everything such. So it was a nice thing, because all throughout the life cycle of a
Mm-hmm.
software implementation, you have always conflicts. People do not always say yay when a new software is implemented. So there's like, okay, so why do we have that? The other one was already working, and I don't want to learn it. And if that software is coming, will I lose my job? All
Mm-hmm.
these anxieties were something, were things that I could tackle, because I was a psychologist. So the further down the road, the more important became my psychological knowledge. Even though
Uh-huh.
I wasn't working as a psychologist, I mean, obviously, I wasn't telling them to look up to on the couch and say, "Yes, what is your problem?" But I was helping them using my psychological skills, and by that time, I felt that maybe there was still this longing for understanding the brain, or at least working in that environment again. So by then, I already changed the employer. I was working um, at Accenture, and in that company, it was also very demanding and challenging. But they also allowed me to work as a lecturer. So not it was more than job sharing, because I did a 100% job, so full FTE.
Right.
But still, I managed to give lectures on Friday evenings and Saturdays. So
Wow.
they said, well, if you want it, as long as you get your job done, you can do whatever you want in your free time. And that was, I give credit to that. That Accenture always said that whatever we cannot offer you, you should also satisfy elsewhere. And as long as you get your job done, that's fine. And that's something that I think that an employer should do.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So I did that, and it actually was really fun. While I do not do any research anymore today. I
Mm-hmm.
just do lecturing, but it's the most fulfilling, purposeful job I ever had, so to speak. It's really something. I have always been in my job in the IT world. I've always been a great people developer. I'm a people person. I love to solve conflicts. I love to grow my people. So being a lecturer is something that really is just that 100%. So every semester I get new students, and it's when I see them in their exams really excelling at what they do, I always tell them, just you have to strike me with my own weapons. I tell you everything I know, and I want you to perform on eye level. And most of my students, they really are performing that way, so that I am proud of them. And that's something that I've always cherished in my work. So I'm a professor now, also teaching or lecturing about the brain. I'm not researching anymore, so it's not coming back, but it's the idea of growing other people to become or to master the studies is something that I've yeah, it came back. So it's a full circle, and I'm really, or it's more like a spiral. It's not like a circle. It's more like a spiral, because it's really in 3D. So in X, Y, and Z axis, it's a bit different on the Z axis, but still, it's I'm really happy at the moment, and I'm 40, so it's like, who could say that at the age of 40 to be happy in their jobs? And I think that, like I said, earlier, it's more than job sharing, or just because it was a little bit more than a job. But
Mm-hmm.
but on the other hand, it's more like a human does have more to offer than one employer maybe can take. And if the employer accepts that, acknowledges that, and also enables the other to do something else, that their employee is happier. And the same is true also for if you offer a 100% job and someone is only willing to give 70 or 50% just because of the life circumstances.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And if you allow that, then that person is also happy and is giving more than just the 50% that they are committed to. So
Yeah.
as an employer, you should always ask the employee, are there any restrictions that you have that hold you back? Because when we can take out, when we can tackle those obstacles, then you probably will be a happy and also a more engaged and committed employee. And that is something probably an employer would want, right?
Yeah.
So for me, job sharing, I always shared my jobs. I shared them as a consultant. I mean, we're many. It's not just one consultant, so
Yeah.
we're exchangeable. But also in my lectures, I'm also exchangeable. Obviously, everyone thinks you are unique, but obviously you're not. And I, for example, I have an informal agreement with two of my colleagues that if they are having time troubles because of their kids or whatever, I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to have kids to have trouble with the timing. I can help out, and the same agreement goes the other way as well, so that they can help out. Because at the end of the day, I don't want the student to be miserable, to miss out on a lecture just because I can't. So it's a work ethic, but I think that you
Mm-hmm.
can share a job and be efficient and also be really effective in that. You just have to work around and find some agreements that work out for all of the parties.
So, Ellie, because of your own background, as you have what one would say maybe a not a linear resume, but you've done so many different things. Do you have an example, or could you tell us, have there been times where that really led to the benefit of your um, professional situation, where you were using all of that knowledge and your experiences in a way that maybe somebody who had a more linear approach might not have had the opportunity to do?
That's an interesting question. And when I think about it, it was probably uh, when I started in IT back then, when I was at IT, most of the people in my team were younger than me and also had an IT background. And I felt like I'm at the wrong place. I mean, obviously, I'm older. I'm not that sophisticated in coding and everything. So obviously, I had some special tasks, which was great for me, and I could definitely live up to the expectations there. But I also said that I don't want to only rely on the special tasks. I have to also do the job done and do the job the way maybe it's expected to be. And I teamed up then. I called him a buddy because he was really helpful in that sense. And that's something also you have to network. You can't do the job alone. You have to team up with somebody who maybe has a different background. And obviously, the most different background was the very homogeneous IT background, which I didn't have. And I asked my colleague Simon whether he could help me out on understanding much better the deep architecture and everything, because that was something that I wasn't able to just do in a certificate or so. I mean, it's obviously too far down in the code. And he said, "Yeah, I can help you." And it's great. Maybe we can help each other out. So there was something where he actually always had trouble with was writing emails to leadership. When he said something or when he wrote something, it was always the way that everything could have been misinterpreted to his, I mean, not in his favor, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. So he said that either I don't write it or I write it and it's not good. So maybe you can write my mails and I can help you out on the coding. And that was really a fruitful teamwork
Mm-hmm.
because I learned so much on that way. I helped him with something that he didn't understand and he wasn't skillful enough. So that was for the employer much to the benefit. So both we all benefited from that.
Thank you so much. That is really, really insightful. Thank you. Your university, at least pre-COVID, offered women events where you have spoken about work-life balance, and also your university collaborates with businesses. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can talk about it. I mean, first of all, I participated in the panel for my university to
Mm-hmm.
make other women aware that they can pursue a professorship and have kids, because it's an applied university, so we're not research focused as
Right.
such as a university, while we also have research, fully research positions. So there is a big mix of that. But on the other hand, most of us lecturers actually are just doing the lectures. And like I said, it's a purposeful thing. So it's just not research. And I think that research is a different thing because research is also very time consuming, and you don't know how the samples go, the data it looks like and everything. So it's very less tangible, very very less controllable. So I think that's a different topic.
Mm-hmm.
But as for lecturing, it's really controllable. Like your previous guest Beatrice also said, it's really academia in the sense of lecturing. It's very controllable because you can do planning, you just do it, and everything else will fall into place. So I can do some extra stuff if I want. I didn't do as much extra stuff as
Mm-hmm.
I thought because I became a mother of two, and that was also a very a special circumstance because, as I alluded earlier to, is that I fell pregnant when I was still a consultant, and I also was already a lecturer at the FOM. So at that time, the
Mm-hmm.
decision was really easy because the FOM always asked me to if I want to be appointed as a professor, and I said no because I love my job the way it is, and it's just an extra thing, the icing on the cake, that I can do some lectures. But I did love the 100% job in the consulting industry. But obviously, the same reasons that Beatrice
Mm-hmm.
had was that during the pregnancy, I felt that it's probably the best idea to sort of pause consultancy and become a professor. So this is the first outtake. So I think that when you become a mother, most people think that you should leave, go into the maternal leave, and then hope at some point of time that you can go back into the same position. uh, I didn't expect it, and I didn't want it because I said, why should I aim for less or the same? In the academia, I have much more to
Mm-hmm.
to I can reach for a bigger goal. I can become a professor. So though I don't think that I haven't seen another person who did this, but I'm very open to that. Now the university also said, well, if you are convinced you can do this, we will appoint you and we will trust you that you will get the job done. And the job was then much more responsibilities than before as a pure lecturer. So a professor has to be more, has to have
Mm-hmm.
has more responsibilities here. So I was appointed, and it was a huge, steep, deep dive. Really, I was working more than I thought. I was actually working until 2 o'clock in the morning so that I can get my lectures ready at 8 o'clock,
Oh, wow.
8:30. And with a small baby, it was really a tough time because I also started when she became 8 weeks. So I breastfed her until she was 13 months. So it was a really tough ride. And I had to do some breast pumping and everything. And at that time, my husband and my parents sometimes brought my daughter to the university, and I had an agreement with the university that my breaks would be longer than just 30 minutes, because leaving the lecture, going to the car, breastfeeding my kid, and going back and breastfeeding the kid means that the kid drinks the milk from two breaths, obviously. So that's a natural thing, and it's not so controllable. So I said 30 minutes is not working out.
Right.
So I told my students, you know what, I have to breastfeed my kid, and we'll see you then in like an hour or so. So if you come earlier in, or if I'm late, then please start with those tasks. I have already prepared them, so you can work. You can work in groups or whatever. I'll be back as soon as I can. And for them, it was really, they didn't know how to handle that, because there were no other mothers, imminent mothers, working moms like that. And I always said, you know what, we can talk about it, because it's like it's the nervous system, the endocrine nervous system. We can talk about the hormones, and it's actually, if I can tell you on the slides, or I can tell you what it is to be stressed and not, that the hormones are not working the way, so the milk is not coming. So I said, I'm sharing something with you that you probably will never ever hear from other parents, because other mothers won't share that, because they wouldn't see a reason for that. But you have now the side chance, to the rare chance to see this and sort of like witness this. So it's like I think that
Right.
that those students who had this experience with me, and I had two kids at the same time, not at the same time, but 3 years later. I think those students really had lasting impressions, besides of those lecture things that mostly these students do not know anymore after a couple of years. But I think those other things that are more like between the lines, those between the lines information or learnings, I think are much more important in my lectures than the lecture itself.
Yeah, it's life lessons. So one day when they themselves become a parent, they will remember, and will also, remember from a care work point of view how much effort it takes. And I think they have a much more realistic approach. And
Absolutely.
also, they realize that it takes a team, ideally, to make that all happen. So I think it's really amazing what a role model you've been, to show to them what reality really is. And it's sort of like, as you said, instead of a theoretical approach, they had a chance to see in practice what work-life balance really means. And so I'm sure that, years from now, they will look back and say, wow, that was very brave of you to share with them, and to also teach them that really valuable lesson. So what it's, what reality is like. Because I think often people, when they hear, oh, having a child is going to change your life, pretty much everybody, before they have a child, they say, oh yeah, but how hard can it truly be? It's like, in the beginning, they just sleep a little, you change some diapers, and you feed them, right? I think, I think everybody, before they have their own kids, has that completely, I don't know, like an underestimation of the time and the lack of sleep. And then, to your point earlier, to the sort of, hormonal changes in everything and how that impacts. Yeah. So no, I'm very appreciative that you, have given your students a very valuable life skills and lessons, really. And now, so you had mentioned earlier that you have also, you said you provide a opportunity between your colleagues, that say if somebody can't um, uh, do the job because they might be sick, or there is something, that you could jump in, and vice versa. I also read that you give your students sometimes an opportunity to participate and be sort of a junior lecturer, which to me, again, was a form of job sharing, or it gives them some additional experience, which I thought was awesome. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of those great opportunities that I gladly then grant to one of my best students. So in that case, it was Laura Bellwinkel, who was really impressive because, well, she fell pregnant with almost the same time period when I was pregnant. It was I was her first kid and my second, and we were really close in the ways of in the values that it must be working. So, and I said, yes, it will be working. And she was really impressive in how she managed her studies. And I also, from the sidelines, always saw how she was helping other students to understand things and explaining them the way that I thought that was really, that, I mean, she was really already far or mature in explaining things. So I thought that maybe she's a talent in lecturing,
Mm-hmm.
definitely a talent. And then every year or every semester, I get some subjects to or modules I get offered to lecture those modules, and I was already planned ahead of my or over my capacities. So I said I can't do this, and obviously someone else has to do it. And the university said, well, we have a problem here because we don't find anyone. So could you please say maybe you can do some overtime? And I said, well, you know what? I chose this job to not do overtime. So obviously, if I want to work 100%, then I would be working somewhere else. So I just want the 60, 70% I was committed to, and I will do that perfectly, but I don't want to do much more. So I said, but you know what I could offer is to ask one of my students, maybe she wants to pick up this chance, and it's a growth opportunity for her, and I can guide her, I can supervise her. So what we actually did was that she had 16 appointments of 3 hours or so, and of those I had at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end a lecture with her together. So instead of 16, I had only 3 hours, 3 appointments, and she managed all the lectures all by herself. We always, after one lecture, we would call and discuss how it went, and I could coach her and tell her what she could do and everything else. But I have to say that she was really independent and running. She hit the ground running, really. As I mean, I'm a people person. I know where talent is. I see that, and she didn't disappoint me. She even exceeded my expectations. So it was the best decision I did. It's we also have a contract for that. So I'm not the first person to do this at the university, but I'm a fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
So every now and then, when I see a student and it fits, then I try to offer that. And because I think that it's the biggest appreciation you can give to, if you trust someone in the early years, that person will grow, that person will be confident in, and that will pay forward into their ways. And I think that's a great thing to offer, that it truly is job sharing, because I had my name on it, but still she was the one
Mm-hmm.
executing. she gained a lot of experience, and I was able to fulfill some obligations which were not truly mine, but obviously I'm a team player,
Mhm.
so I always try to find a way to fix the things. And I think that was at that time a really great experience. Yeah, and so this is what I say, that job sharing is something, it can help to to grow people into the talent pipeline, and then get that person activated 100% maybe when she's ready or he's ready. The next one was a male person, my student. So, but I thought she Laura was really um, truly unique.
I think, to me, this is such an awesome example of how, a situation can evolve into something. For, I'm sure that student initially hadn't anticipated that she or he then would become a lecturer, but to gain that experience, and then also I think for the other students to see that if
Yes.
one applies oneself, that can happen. So I think it served so many different purposes. And to your point, that for that individual person or student, many years from now, to think about the trust and confidence you have given them to say, yes, I believe in you, you can do that. So I think that is really, really awesome. A lot of the times I've been reading about companies and especially HR departments struggling on how to help employees who have children or are looking after elderly parents, and at the same time working, how to really fit it all under one hood, and like to make it all happen. So do you have some advice from a flexible working perspective?
My own experience, but I also could draw on the experience that I had when I was an employee without
Mm-hmm.
kids. So the most recent one is that when I had this lecturing duties, obviously at daytime, but also at the weekends and at the
Mm-hmm.
evenings, I didn't have so much trouble with lecturing during the lockdown, the COVID-19 lockdown. I didn't have trouble lecturing in the evenings or in the week on the weekends. However, I had two classes also at the daytime, and that was really heartbreaking for me to see my kids being with me at home, but not really attended to the way I wanted. And I think also not because why I wanted it as a mom, but also the way they needed the attendance. I mean, it was really hard to cater all the needs of my kids, and at the same time, obviously, of my students who happened to be in the first semester of their studies. So they also didn't know how to study. They had me in their first lecture, and then after the second lecture, I think the lockdown was happening. So we obviously had multiple situations along the course of the half semester where I said that it's not working. I either I give up, or I try something new. And what wasn't working was that I tried to be in synchrony with them in webinar sessions and lecturing with them, just like that, like we do now. I mean, this is something we do live or we record, but we have to be in synchrony here. So, but it's the wrong timing for my kids. And so I thought, well, how about if I just record my lectures the way I want it? So what I did then to record that in the evenings and to play it, or to let my students stream it on demand. That way they said, you know what, it's even better. Not that I don't like you in person, but the thing is that if I don't understand it, I can just pause and then rewind it. So it actually helps me and cater me. And another student says, you know what, it's great because sometimes you talk so slowly, and I can just do
Mm-hmm.
the speed 1.5. So then I can speed up and I'm faster. I said, you know what? I have some open class. You can come in, check in, ask your questions. I'll be happy to ask the questions, and everyone can queue in and get your questions answered. So you can all work in your own pace. You can study at your own pace. I'll be there for you just 1 hour a day, not 3 hours a day. Sometimes I have 3 lectures, so that would be like 9 hours a day. So that was way too much for the kids. So sometimes, especially on those days, I had only 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the midday, and one in the afternoon. And that was perfect because the later ones could be catered by my husband, so he could have the kids in the mornings. And but as I alluded earlier to, that were also my previous experience being an employee without kids, is that I'm an early bird. So this is really something that caters my needs to be up really early, and I don't necessarily have to work in the evenings. Nowadays, I work in the evenings, but I prefer working at 8 o'clock or even earlier. So at one of my former employers, Aldi Süd, it was really great to see that I was always working internationally. I was always working globally. So I was assigned to Australia because Australia's Australian counterparts in the companies were said to be difficult. And they said, well, you are a psychologist, you can deal with that. And I said, okay, I can deal with that maybe. Let's see. And it was the greatest. It was also a learning path for both of the counterparts and me. It was really a happy. It was really a happy and also trusting relationship that grew from a difficult path, I must say. But the good thing is that when you have such a relationship, you have to talk with the people. I mean, you can't just play the balls back and forth via the what was it then, SharePoint. Okay, you can't just check in your results and say, here, go ahead, have a look. You have to talk about this. And if you think of Australia and Germany, then obviously you have sometimes 13 hours time distance. So what we did was that I'm as an early bird, woke up very early, started 6:30 or so that until 9 o'clock we had a lot of time to talk about the things. And then every one of us had a lot of time to sleep or to work on those problems and then go back the next day. So we were working anti-cyclic. And after overcoming the obstacles that we obviously had, because the person was told to be difficult, we were actually really working well. We were much more efficient and effective than the other pairs. I mean, it's not pairing, but it's more like teams, like the Australian team and the international team. So it's the overview, but I was one of the interface partners, and working with someone in Australia helped me to cater my needs, so I could start my job early, and I was finished at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's perfect.
Yeah, and it served your needs. It helped the organization to have somebody who was willing to be up early. So I think that is, that's a really, really good message. It's like, flexibility however it fits employees or the organization, that it in the end it makes everybody happy. Yeah,
exactly. But this being said, you have to know yourself,
right?
If that is one of the values that you say you want to be an early bird, and you don't want to start at 9 o'clock, because 9 o'clock is like for me 3 hours too late. Yeah, so I'm already awake. So if you want to do this, then you have to look for opportunities that offer that, because you cannot. I mean, if my husband in his company would say, I'll start at 6 and you can come in at 9, and I'm walking out of the door at 3 o'clock, he would say, what, this is not how the customers approach us. You have to be there when the customers are, and not whenever you want.
Right.
If you have local customers, you have to adhere to the times, obviously. But if you have international customers or international partners you work with, that's why you should always think, what do I need? What can I offer? What is important for me? Then you look for the right employer. Not every one of the employers is the most suitable for you. And it's your job to look for the right employer.
Well, I honestly, I wish, I would have had you as a professor when I was at university, because I really feel you are teaching the students so much more than quote unquote just the academic material. They get so many life lessons, with all the material they are learning, that they will look back and think, this is very progressive what Professor Elli did way back when, so that's really, really, amazing. And now, how can people reach you, Elli?
Well, they can reach me via LinkedIn or via my website, obviously. So I do trainings for coachings for groups of people. I think that at the moment there are a lot of employers trying to sort of, so to speak, prune. So to see which of the employees are maybe not so much in demand with their skills. So employers could reach out to me to talk about reskilling and the attitude about reskilling, something like that. And I think that's the most urgent thing. I think if individuals come and want to reach me about coaching, that's also fine. I don't have that much time at the moment, obviously, because of things that I already alluded to, but I do from time to time do also individual coaching.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Elli, for being on my show today. I learned so much, and it was really, really fascinating to hear your story and how you use your job as a professor to teach your students so much more than just the academic material. So thank you so much.
Well, I'm honored, Karen. I mean, as I said before we were recording, I mean, the guests you already invited were, were really progressive. They were progressive. I feel that I am at the moment just doing what my parents have enabled me to do. So I was born to feminist parents. My dad is a feminist. My mom is a feminist. She was always working. They have both become medical doctors. So my dad actually could be a guest on your show because he was home alone dad for a couple of years. So he was really,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that's why what I am accomplishing is actually not that much when I look at my parents, what they have accomplished. So I'm honored to be on your show, and I will definitely tune in your next shows as well.
Thank you. And I would love to have you come back maybe in a year or so and to hear what is going on and how your lectures are and everything. That would be really, really awesome.
Thanks. And you are following me on LinkedIn, so you'll find out what I'm up to and what I'm doing and everything. So thank you for following me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to my conversation with Professor Elli. I very much appreciated hearing about Elli's vast and broad educational background. It is so beneficial for her students how she is using this together with her professional experience to teach them not simply academic material but also important life skills and practical applications. I was very honored that Elli shared so authentically her work-life balance and the struggles and innovative solutions during COVID-19. Her other examples of flexible working, like an unusual form of job sharing as well as more asynchronous working across time zones, really demonstrated how more diverse a workforce can be if flexible working can be implemented. If you would like to learn more details about this episode and others, previous episodes, please visit our website, which is emilyspath.ca, which is emilyspath.ca. Also, in honor of International Podcast Day, I will be publishing the inaugural Emily's Path Consulting EPC's newsletter today. In it, you will find interesting research that I have found, updates on previous guests, and an additional Q&A interview. I will also provide some teasers about upcoming podcast guests. If you would like to sign up for it, please go to Emily's Path Consulting website, which again is emilyspath.ca. Thank you so much for listening to the show. We hope you gained valuable insights and new ideas. To keep listening to future episodes, please head over to iTunes or your favorite player and subscribe and give it a rating. We would very much appreciate a review and for you to share it on social media, so more people can start innovating in how they offer employment. Until the next time, goodbye!